Good afternoon from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's National Conservation Training Center in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. My name is Ashley Fortune, and I would like to welcome you to a new mini-webinar series held in partnership with the USGS. This series is part of the Landscape Conservation Cooperatives and Partners Project Outreach Strategy. A recording of this broadcast will be posted shortly. We're working on getting those up on the lccnetwork.org website. So you can review this one and all the other ones in the future. All right, let's get started. Sean, welcome.
Thank you, Ashley. My name is Sean Finn, and I'm Science Coordinator for the Great Northern Landscape Conservation Cooperative. I want to welcome you all today to the Landscape Conservation Cooperative Integrated Data Management Network Seminar Series. The Integrated Data Management Network, or IDMN, is a 2-year project funded by the National LCC network and consisted of over 20 partners, including 9 landscape conservation cooperatives across the nation and more than 50 investigators working to understand and define integration among various data networks and how we can more efficiently have upcoming data networks organized so that we can efficiently use them in these large landscape conservation projects. The IDMN project looked at ways to bring coherence to a rather fractionated information management landscape. Specifically, the project tried to address ways LCC partners dealt with the basic building blocks of data management, building and sharing science products with partners, securely storing their data for the long term, and evaluating ways to get those outputs to cooperators and eventually the public. Over the course of the 2-year IDMN project, the scope was expanded to address ways to track projects that supported these scientific outputs, as well as build communication products and tools to help community members work better together. These efforts always kept other landscape-level efforts in mind, especially the National Climate Change and Wildlife Science Center network, the network of the Climate Science Centers. The IDMN project assembled 6 teams of information management, natural resources, and communication specialists to evaluate and test different approaches. From this effort, the teams defined ways different LCCs and other landscape-level projects could not just coexist, but also constructively work together. Eventually, the IDMN project is now winding down, but the work is not. We all know that managing our information and data resources is an ongoing effort, and we hope that the team and other partners will continue to collaborate on integration pathways for LCCs and other projects. There'll be more discussion about how these communities of practice will proliferate later on in the webinar series. But the team recognized that just writing out some great pathways, understanding some great pathways to define data integration was not enough, that the pathways we needed to focus on included specific examples of data sharing options and fostering data integration partnerships. Collaboration on guidance, documentation, and fostering hardware were some of the important elements for the IDMN project. The deliverables are in the process of being distributed. This webinar series is one of the early deliverables to let people know what's coming down the pipe. All the products that the IDMN will develop will be delivered by the end of the calendar year 2014. To get these integration pathways started, the IDMN project generated a variety of products. These include metadata and data standards to help groups work together in specific domains, tools that let projects take advantage of particular partner capabilities, and collaboration concepts. As I said, these tangible tools will be available through the lccnetwork.org website by the end of the calendar year. But to roll out this information, we established this webinar series, and today's session is the 3rd of 6 webinars scheduled over the course of the 3 months of the summer. There will also be additional opportunities to discuss and understand these products at the Large Landscape Conference that will be held in Washington, D.C. at the end of October. There will be more information available on that through the lccnetwork.org website. But today we're going to have a specific presentation by 3 of the primary researchers associated with the Integrated Data Management Network. Brendan Ward, who's with the Conservation Biology Institute, BJ Richardson with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Tom Miewald with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Brendan Ward, who's going to describe for us some of the elements of integration in action.
Hi, everyone. This is Brendan Ward with the Conservation Biology Institute, a nonprofit with around 30 staff who provide scientific and technical expertise to support the conservation and recovery of biological diversity. Today, I'll be presenting a short overview of how we've been adapting DataBasin to meet the needs of the Integrated Data Management Network project and our LCC and agency partners. BJ Richardson and Tom Miewald will follow and show how they are building on these efforts to meet the needs of their LCCs. First, I'll give you a very quick overview on DataBasin, which we presented in more detail on our previous webinar on June 26th. You can also check out a wide variety of other recorded webinars on DataBasin on our webinars page at consbio.org. Next, I'll discuss conservation planning atlases and how we've been specifically integrating with Sciencebase as part of this project. And we'll talk a little bit about how we've been customizing DataBasin to further meet the needs of our partners. So very briefly, DataBasin is an open access web mapping and science support platform that provides 3 core services for free: the ability to discover, download, and upload spatially explicit data with complete metadata, feature-rich mapping tools that allow many different kinds of users with many different technical qualifications to visualize and explore information, and collaborative tools, including group workspaces and spatial commenting functionality. DataBasin was created to empower people to develop better solutions to environmental challenges by providing greater access to integrated scientific data sets, tools, and social networks. For more information, please go to databasin.org. Conservation planning atlases are the way that we adapt DataBasin's core functionality to meet the needs of our partners. These are hosted within DataBasin and provide full access to our data publishing, mapping, and collaboration tools in ways that are controlled by the Conservation Planning Atlas admins. We work collaboratively with our LCC and other partners to develop a look and feel of their conservation planning atlases that complements and integrates with their existing websites. They can then load their spatial resources directly into DataBasin or host on Sciencebase and import into DataBasin and organize these within galleries in their CPA, as Tom and BJ will show later, to better communicate this information out to their stakeholders. CPA users will have default access to all of these curated resources within the conservation planning atlases, but they also have easy access to the many thousand more spatial resources available within DataBasin. So far, we've completed 7 conservation planning atlases for our LCC partners: the Gulf Coast of Plains and Ozarks LCC, Gulf Coast Prairie LCC, North Atlantic LCC, which BJ will show, North Pacific LCC, which Tom will show, South Atlantic LCC, the Southeast Region, Southern Rockies LCC. We've also completed a variety of other conservation planning atlases, gateways, and other portals. They go by many different names, depending on who we're working with. And we invite you to check those out at databasin.org. We have 4 more conservation planning atlases now under development over this next year for the Alaska region, Desert LCC, Great Basin, and Pacific Islands Climate Change Cooperative. We've been really impressed with how the LCCs have been using their conservation planning atlases to provide enhanced access and functionality to their spatial resources to their stakeholders. To me, this really highlights the shared objectives between DataBasin, Conservation Biology Institute, and the LCCs, and we're pleased to be a part of their solution. For more information about conservation planning atlases, please contact us at databasin@consbio.org. Within the Integrated Data Management Network, specifically, we have been developing several integration points between Sciencebase and DataBasin. ScienceBase is a collaborative scientific data and information management platform developed by the USGS for use by scientists, data practitioners, decision makers, and the public. ScienceBase was presented in more detail on the first webinar in the series on June 12th. We invite you to check them out at sciencebase.org. We have been developing an integration-oriented workflow that allows users to publish their spatial resources to ScienceBase and then pull them into DataBasin to present within their conservation planning atlases or just contribute to the available information in DataBasin. Publishing to ScienceBase provides these users with the ability to meet several agency requirements, including hosting on federally managed infrastructure, providing map services that are available for use and integrated with other platforms, and discoverability within several large federated metadata catalogs. Once spatial resources have been published into ScienceBase's map services, it's easy to import those records into DataBasin. This has been demonstrated on both of the previous webinars. This import process then locks that ScienceBase record in as the authoritative source of information, and DataBasin periodically pulls in any updates from those records. This prevents any duplication of information between the two systems. These resources can then be pulled within the conservation planning atlases and organized into galleries or however the conservation planning atlas administrators feel appropriate to present those information resources out to their stakeholders. ScienceBase is also harvesting data sets uniquely published to DataBasin, which enhances their discoverability and helps meet other federal requirements. We've also been integrating with ScienceBase by sharing functionality. We have a reporting tool, which we've discussed in previous webinars, that provides fairly basic functionality. It allows users to draw or select an area of interest and, given that, go out and analyze whatever other data layers are visible in their map, their web map, and provide simple summaries, both of the quantity of those different data layers that are available, as well as stratifying that reporting out to show different statistics for unique values. For instance, you could run a summary of the acres of particular land cover categories within a wildlife management area. While the tool is simple, the tool implementation is quite complex. Generalizing this to work against many different data sources for deploying to someone else's servers is a real challenge. We've been at this for a year. We're very close to wrapping this up. We're not quite done with it. Unfortunately, the server technology made a major leap in technology while we were in the middle of developing this. This tool has been open sourced. It's available out on the web. We will present more information about this on our upcoming webinar. And we've been working actively with the ScienceBase hosting team to get this deployed out to their servers. The benefit of having this tool out on ScienceBase is that it allows users of the conservation planning atlases and others in DataBasin to run the same analysis tools against resources that are hosted in ScienceBase as they can for those resources hosted directly inside DataBasin. DataBasin is a customizable platform that, by its virtue of being customizable, helps support integration. We've been slowly adding new capabilities to DataBasin over time to meet the needs of our partners, including providing access to a broader array of content within the conservation planning atlases beyond just spatial web mapping services, as Tom will demonstrate in a few moments. We can also develop integration points with other platforms. This is already in the pipeline for our work with the North Pacific LCC. We can also build purpose-built thematic viewers to really focus in on particular geographies or themes of interest to the LCCs to better help them communicate out this information in a cohesive and focused manner to their stakeholders. We have some projects in progress, but they're not, the ink is not dry, so I can't talk about those just yet. We've also been working on other improvements to DataBasin's core technology, which will become available to all the conservation planning atlases and all DataBasin users. For example, we've been working on a complete redesign of our mapping interface to provide a much richer experience including the ability to use a split screen viewer in the map page to show multiple layers over the same space at the same time and easily draw the curtain back and forth over a particular layer. BJ is going to talk about that again in his session. Okay, with that, I would like to hand the ball off to BJ Richardson.
Thanks, Brendan. My name is BJ Richardson. I'm with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Massachusetts at the Northeast region. I'm the Northeast Regional GIS Coordinator as well as the Regional Science Applications GIS Coordinator. I'm going to talk about some of the details on how we have begun to implement this system in the North Atlantic Landscape Conservation Cooperative. So why do we embark on building this system? Well, one of the early things we did in the North Atlantic LCC was to do an information management needs assessment, and part of that process identified what some of the priorities were for our partners in terms of what we might provide to them, and two of them were web mapping and a centralized place for data downloads. And the other goals for this system was to have a central place to distribute the results of the numerous analyses that we had in the pipeline for different projects. So the goals being to assist the stakeholders and partners with their decision-making as far as conservation priorities and have a way to kind of get everyone on the same page for that decision-making. Give you a kind of a graphic outline of how our system is set up. You can see the kind of central piece of it is data basin for mapping, visualization, and analysis, as Brendan just described. We are, as he described as well, storing our data and the web mapping services on the ScienceBase platform. We're also making use of our own website as a place to centralize downloads and link with the Amazon cloud. We're bringing in other web mapping services from other platforms that are out there. ArcGIS Online and Appalachian LCC has a open source platform. We're pulling in their web services. And then for downloads, we are, in the case where a partner is maintaining a data set and they have it available for download, we're pointing to that place for our downloads. A little bit more about ScienceBase. As has been discussed, it's hosted on a federal system, which means that federal requirements are met. It can host just about any kind of data type, and as Brendan mentioned, has a federated search across many LCCs and all the climate science centers as a central place for discovery of data sets. It also creates web mapping services automatically when you load up a service definition file. So it automatically creates these services, which is a very nice feature, and handles some of the server-side stuff that you need for producing these services and then importing them into a database. It's just a screenshot of what ScienceBase looks like. Once you load the data up, you get a preview window, and it also makes available these services. So if you click on Advanced Services, you get a description of what's available, and it includes KML, which is also a nice feature. And you can, if you click on View in the National Map Viewer, it'll open a new window and push the data set out to that viewer, which is pretty nice. I don't need to talk a whole lot about databasin. Brendan covered that pretty comprehensively. It is our web mapping platform, and you can store the data on site. For our particular infrastructure, we're storing it on ScienceBase, and as he said, the integration with ScienceBase is ongoing and improving. This is just a screenshot of what our North Atlantic site looks like. It's pretty similar to most of the other ones in the mapping interface. The front page has more variability, but this is the mapping interface as it currently stands, but not for much longer, as they're going to be doing a refresh, as Brendan mentioned. So Databasin supports these types of items, data sets, maps, galleries, which are collections of maps, data, and other things, guides and case studies, which provide more detail, and personal workspaces, where you can save out or upload your own data into your own personal workspace. So you can create a map and save it and mark it up and bring your own data into it, and then save it out and share it as well. So we're starting to integrate content on Databasin, so not just in ScienceBase, but also on Databasin. As Brendan mentioned, other CPAs have been created. One of them is the Two Countries, One Forest CPA, and they're also a partner in the North Atlantic LCC. And so what we have done was to import their galleries into a gallery on our site. And what that accomplished was it also made all their data sets available for searching on our CPA. So just by importing their galleries, because all their data sets are in a gallery, it made their data sets show up when searching on, just limiting the search to our CPA, but their data sets will show up on that search. So that was pretty slick. We're also, as I said, starting to import other web services into our CPA from, for example, NLCD, and the Nature Conservancy is starting to put up data sets on ArcGIS Online, and we can then import those services into our CPA without having to create and maintain those services. We're also linking to the other CPAs as part of our site, and I expect we'll be doing more integration at this level going forward. Brendan mentioned they're redesigning their interface at Databasin to be a lot cleaner and not having the floating menus any longer. They just slide in and out. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be a little more friendly to mobile devices as well, although not specifically designed for that. But I'm looking forward to the implementation of this. Just to kind of give you another look at how we're handling downloads, because that's an important piece of what we needed to do. What we decided to do is a little bit different, which is to store our downloadable zip files on the Amazon cloud, and then point to them from the various locations. So you can see here's the Databasin site. When you click the download button and click on download source data, that's going to direct you to our Amazon cloud for the download. And here's a screenshot of our website, and where you go to the data set and download it from there. Or on ScienceBase, we're also pointing to our cloud. And what that accomplished for us was multiple things. One was the thing that drove it was setting up a single download location on our website. So Databasin is great, as is ScienceBase, but if you want to download a lot of files and you kind of know exactly what you want, it can take a while to go through that process. And on our website, we can centralize where those download locations are for people who know just what they want without really needing to look at the data. And so once that was set up, it made sense for us to point all of our download locations to those files. The other thing is that the files on ScienceBase are service definition files or .sd files, which do contain the data, but they're not necessarily easy to work with if you don't have a lot of expertise in GIS. They're also in the Web Mercator projection which is important for performance and web mapping, but again, not as easy to use in terms of getting it into your desktop GIS. The exception to this setup is, as I mentioned earlier, if a partner is hosting the data set for download, then we will point the download location to their site, so that we don't need to maintain that. The other thing here is we can include layer files and things like that in the zip file for download. And with that, I will pass it to Tom, who's going to take it from here and talk about the North Pacific LCC.
Okay, thanks, BJ, and thanks to everyone else. So I'm Tom Miewald. I'm with the North Pacific Landscape Conservation Cooperative. I'm housed in Portland, Oregon with the Fish and Wildlife Service, and I spend about half of my time as data coordinator for the North Pacific LCC. And so I'll talk a little bit about our experience in working with these two pieces of technology to get information and data out to our conservation community. I'll first talk a little bit about the need and how we got to where we are. With the North Pacific LCC, early on we held some workshops, and we identified that one of the big needs in the North Pacific region is that we're data rich. There's a lot of information and data out there, but it's not well coordinated, perhaps, about all the landscape scale data that's out there. So one of our roles is to inventory, synthesize, and get the data out there to people. And so a little bit of the story of how our product developed is based around these needs. A little bit of history and evolution, much like what BJ described. We went through a needs assessment. To get there first, we developed a data management team, and we inventoried different data management systems. And starting from that foundation way back in 2011, Sciencebase and LC Map and Databasin both came up as high priority needs. They both kind of fill different niches in what we want to do. One around representing data visually, and one around really having that repository for data that we can use to get information out there. We also conducted a series of focus group workshops across the geography, and I should have a slide showing the geography of the North Pacific. I apologize for that, but we basically go from Northern California all the way up to Alaska, and that's working in British Columbia too. It's kind of the coastal temperate rainforest ecoregion. And we held a series of workshops up and down the coast, one in Portland, Oregon, one in Seattle, Washington, one in Vancouver, British Columbia, and then one in Juneau, Alaska. And we really wanted to understand who the users of the system might be, what are some of the needs that they saw, and how we could meet those needs. Rather than just building something without an audience, we really wanted to get a sense of who the audience was, make that connection, and try to build something around that using existing technology. So the highest initial priorities from this, we spent a couple months doing this, one is finding and accessing information, knowing about data. The second is landscape scale information and data. We wanted to have a metadata system so people can understand the quality of the information and data that's out there. And really this kind of gets to how we landed on this database and Sciencebase integration, which is also great that the IDMN was created around that time. We were looking at this, and looking at this in particular really helped us and how we were looking at the world. Strategic positioning within this expanding. There's a lot of online portals out there for data and information. So how do we, we want to recreate anything. We want to build off existing technology and platforms. We don't want to, invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into a new system. So how can we leverage these existing systems and all the great things they do to support, the practitioner community? So I guess, the way we look at our data management system is, at the very bottom, the foundation of it is this information layers, that there's information and data that are based upon a set of data management standards and guidelines, and that this data is openly accessible. So that is, that's kind of the foundation. The second part is this data management layer, which we really see as sciencebase. This is where the North Pacific LCC stores all of its data, whether it's geospatial data, whether it's a final report, whether it's a presentation that somebody's given. We are putting it up on sciencebase, giving appropriate metadata and getting it out there so people can get the information. And then the way we see, this is going to feed into several services, hopefully, over time. One is the North Pacific LCC website, but another kind of the big component is getting our geospatial data out into this conservation planning atlas, or this gateway layer of getting data out there. And the database insight really performs that function as a gateway to get our spatial data, and also meeting some of the needs for data inventory. And the great thing about Databasin, too, is that it also brings in data from other data publishers. It's not just, one-way data coming in. We can bring in data from, all the data sets that the larger Databasin world has, as well as it has tools to bring in data from other web publishers as well. So, I guess to summarize, our interest in sciencebase and the database and CPA integration is that sciencebase is providing that repository, and the web mapping services, as BJ said, are so great to have. It's really nice to have that capability to develop those web mapping services, and then have that CPA as that gateway layer that people can turn to have a good way to work with information. And so with that, I'm going to do a little bit of a demo, and I'm going to share my application. Tell me if this isn't working. Can you see the Conservation Planning Atlas site?
Not yet. Is there another one that says Start Sharing Now? Another button?
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Great. So this is the landing page of our Conservation Planning Atlas, and I'll just walk through a few different ways that we're integrating information and data in. I think first I'll tell the story about show this how we're using sciencebase. So this is sciencebase and our folder structure. It's not the most exciting thing in the world to look at, but underneath, this is really where we're putting all of our information and data, and these are the different projects that we have developed and funded over the years in different folders. And so, for example, you can look at we developed a landscape corridor connectivity project, and there's a number of different data sets underneath there. And so this is where you can actually get the data. You can learn about the metadata. And it has two things here. One is a file that people could use to download the data if they wanted to. And a second is a web mapping service that will then feed into Databasin. So that's kind of the back end, I guess, of our data management system is having this metadata and the data stored up here that then feed into this gateway of the North Pacific LCC. So that information and data that I just showed is all in this gallery that we have. All of our data sets that are completed are in different galleries. And then you can open up this information in a map and interact with it and visualize the information right there. And it works pretty quickly, and it's a very useful tool. And you can do all the things in Databasin that you can do in Databasin. You learned about that earlier in a different webinar, so I'm not going to go into all that. So that's a fundamental aspect of our site. A second thing we have are these galleries. As BJ mentioned, they have these too. They're kind of focused around different topics, for example, coastal and marine resources. There's a lot of information that's on Databasin. That's spatial data that we created web mapping services for, and things like that. There's also, and this is something maybe unique to the North Pacific, is that we have this tab called External Resources, and here it has similar kind of divisions of topics. And so this is a way of bringing in information in a data inventory that we conducted. We spent about a year and a half developing a data inventory for data sets across the North Pacific LCC. What we ended up doing is using Sciencebase as the repository for metadata records for all the data sets that might be of interest for landscape scale conservation. And so what we developed with Databasin was a way to bring in those metadata records from Sciencebase in a way in Databasin. A lot of these data sets don't have web mapping services, or they're zip files, or there's not a direct way to get at some of that information. And so this provides a tool or a way to mine the Sciencebase records that are on our site based upon the inventory that we've done. You can also go to search Sciencebase inventory here, and let's say you're interested in learning about vegetation maps across the North Pacific LCC, and this will then mine the inventory of data, and it will take you to a site where, for some data sets, we'll have information or data or zipped files that we can link people to. In some instances, it's a link to another site where people can then get the information. So Databasin is a great tool for information that's in a web-accessible platform, but for some data sets, there's a lot of data sets created before web mapping services became really popular that we want to make as one of the tasks or goals of LCC. We want to get that information out to people. So yeah, those are a few ways that we are using Databasin and this integration. And it's again, I want to very thankful that the IDMN project was funded and explored that ability to link those two tools together. And that's all I have. And I guess I'm supposed to stop sharing and do this. Yeah, questions?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Tom. And to the rest of our presenters, BJ and Brendan and Sean as well. So now it's time for questions. If any of you have questions out there, you can either use the raise hand icon that's located between the participant list and the chat box. Looks like a little hand. You just click on that. I'll see it pop up. I'll call on you by name, and you'll press *6 to remove the global mute and then ask your question. You're also free to text chat your questions in the chat box below. All right, we have a question from Christine Evans.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
That's okay, we can hear you now.
Okay. That was really excellent demo of the multiple LCCs. I've recently taken over as geomatics coordinator for the Gulf Coastal Plains and Ozarks LCC, and our CPA has been active for about a year and a half now, and we're just not seeing a whole lot of use. And so my question is, have you guys worked to develop any kind of outreach or use strategies prior to launching your LCCs, or is that something you guys have in the works? Because that's something we're very interested in here.
Yeah, I could respond quickly to that. You know, we just launched ours a couple months ago, and we have had a series of webinars about the tool, realizing that there is the potential for people not necessarily going there. But I know that we have had some use. I haven't looked at our usage statistics since. I should probably do that, Brendan, at some point. But I think the main thing is and this is one of the things I really like about the CPA and the Databasin side, is developing a community. We have a few communities that are active. That's where a lot of activity is going on, because there's conservation planning efforts going on there, and so people are using those communities as a way to share information and data. So I see that as kind of a rich source of use, rather than just having a site out there that doesn't, it's not linked to any active, ongoing planning effort, I suppose.
This is BJ. I think the way we've handled it is more of a soft rollout than a sort of, as we've been building it, we've been starting to encourage people to go to it through various means, starting with the people who are most closely involved with it on the information management team. And then as we started to build it out more, we started to publicize it in our newsletters and on our website. And it seems like our traffic has been pretty good. I think I looked at it with Tasha a couple of weeks ago, and she thought it looked good. I don't know how to necessarily interpret all that information yet, but we had a decent number of unique visitors, in the hundreds and that type of thing, and they stayed on the site for a reasonable amount of time and went to a fair number of different pages. So, so far so good. I would like to get more people to go there, and also start to get, even more importantly in my mind, is getting feedback on how they're using it and whether they're finding it useful and whether they would like to see, different things on it. So that's what I'm really looking forward to getting is feedback from the users on how useful it is and whether there's improvements they'd like to have.
I'll follow that by adding that your impact is broader than just looking at the analytics within a specific conservation planning atlas, because every publicly accessible resource that goes into your CPA becomes part of database proper. There's also kind of ancillary usage by other users coming across those data sets through other CPAs or through database as a whole. And so you're still hitting those users even if they're not necessarily coming through your CPA specifically. In the future, we're really wanting to pull together more integrated metrics to help report out to each of the CPAs how their data sets are being, or all of their resources are being used within their CPAs as well as within the broader ecosystem. Likewise, when you put something out in ScienceBase, it has a much broader impact than what you're able to easily see with particular metrics based on your website or the CPA, because it's going into the broader ScienceBase catalog as well as being harvested into other platforms, such as someday, I believe, data.gov, geoportal.gov. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the other one.
And this is Sean, if I can just jump in on Christine's question. So, the question you bring up is pervasive across the LCCs and not just in this conservation atlas approach or something specific to data basin or ScienceBase. And it's just those kinds of communications that we need and that we expect to kind of carry forth this community of practice. Is that there's probably no clear answer to any one of these questions, certainly not one to yours, but there's several answers, and as we pull those answers together, we all begin to do better at delivering conservation data.
Thanks, I appreciate all the feedback.
Excellent, thank you. And then Zahia Stewart, did you have a question?
*6 to come off mute, right?
Yes. And then make sure your own phone is unmuted as well.
Jahai, are you there?
Oh, I didn't have a question. Did I click something that made it look like I did?
I wasn't sure. The X was marked, so I wasn't sure.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Thank you. All right, do we have any more questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any more come in. Do any of our presenters have closing remarks?
Well, this is Sean. I will just say, I forgot to mention at the outset, is that we are in the process of setting up a YouTube channel for the LCC network. All of the webinars that are presented as part of this IDMN webinar series will be posted to that YouTube channel. It'll be a dedicated channel for the LCC network. We expect that community of videos and webinars, et cetera, will grow. But there will be a link to the YouTube channel off of the lccnetwork.org website, which is the hub for all of the communications for the LCC network, including the integrated data management network portion of the LCC network. So thanks, everyone, for joining today. In 2 weeks, we will have another webinar in the IDMN webinar series, specifically talking about the toolshed approach, which is more focused on technical aspects of spatial and non-spatial software that's customized for various kinds of analyses.
Excellent. Thank you, Sean, and thank you again to our presenters and our participants. Everybody have a great day.